Hello there, you're watching All 24 News, world news program broadcasting to you live from Algiers, and these are tonight's top stories. Trump praises Algeria, U.S. efforts for stability. Algeria hosts key intra-African trade fair, and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf in Malaysia for regional cooperation deal. Australia stops Sahrawi phosphate imports. Polisario hails this move and urges other countries to follow. Dozens killed in Gaza. Zionist massacres continue against civilians. Resistance vows daily strikes and ceasefire talks resume in Qatar with no breakthrough. And later on, Trump stands firm on tariffs targeting 14 countries. South Africa slams tariffs as inaccurate, and the UN warns that trade war fuels global uncertainty. 4 reports are straight ahead. Welcome back to the program. First off in our news tonight, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune received a message from US President Donald Trump congratulating Algeria on its 63rd Independence Day. Trump praised the strong and lasting partnership between the two nations, highlighting joint efforts in fighting terrorism, securing borders, and promoting regional stability. He also stressed that Algerian-American cooperation now paves the way for a more secure and prosperous future for both countries.
On behalf of the United States of America, I extend my warmest congratulations on the 63rd anniversary of your National Independence Day, celebrated on July 5, as both the United States and Algeria commemorate their independence on the same day. This occasion reminds us of the enduring partnership between our two nations. Together, we have achieved important milestones in advancing regional stability, combating terrorism, and securing borders, all for the sake of our shared security and economic ties. Our cooperation today is paving the way for a future that is more secure and more prosperous for both Americans and Algerians.
Similarly, President Trump also voiced Washington's hope to boost ties with Algeria, particularly in trade and culture.
We aspire for our relationship to continue flourishing, particularly in the areas of trade and cultural exchange, as we are capable of shaping a brighter future for both our nations.
On a related note, Algeria and the United States strengthen security, energy, and military ties, with leaders now working to expand cooperation in new strategic areas to reinforce historic bilateral relations. Salman Esseb has more.
Algerian-American relations have been steadily advancing across multiple sectors, highlighting the strong commitment of both nations to enhance cooperation, dialogue, and knowledge sharing. These ties are built upon the foundation of historical connections and well-established achievements, especially in areas such as regional and global collaboration, counter-terrorism efforts, and promoting stability in the Sahel region.
Algeria plays a pivotal role in achieving security, stability, and prosperity in the region. I also thank President Tebboune for the support that Algeria has provided us and for its participation in our regional exercise. Finally, we discussed the importance of continuing dialogue, building our friendship, and ways to work together to achieve greater security and strengthen our bilateral relationship even further.
The energy partnership between Algeria and the United States is also evolving significantly, drawing increased attention from both sides. Efforts are being concentrated on bolstering joint ventures in energy exploration and production. In this context, Sonatrach, Algeria's national oil company, has signed various memorandums of understanding and agreements with American energy firms to further develop hydrocarbon exploration.
It was a great meeting today with President Tebboune. He truly understands the intricate details related to investment opportunities. It was indeed a wonderful meeting. Thank you. We hope to move forward swiftly with this investment, as it will benefit hydrocarbon production in Algeria. This meeting encourages us as it aligns with the agreement for negotiation and the commencement of work. We have also sensed a willingness to continue the discussions.
Beyond energy, Algerian-American collaboration now spans additional sectors, including defense, economics, and science and technology. This broadening of ties demonstrates a mutual interest in deepening the bilateral relation to achieve shared benefits.
In a different news story, the Algerian capital, Algiers, hosted the high-profile Algeria High-Level Roadshow on Tuesday, co-organized by Afreximbank, the AFCFTA Secretariat, and the African Union Commission. The event gathered continental leaders for strategic talks on boosting Africa's trade integration. Zafar Jani reports now.
On the sidelines of the fourth edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, set to be hosted by Algeria this September, a high-level forum was held on Tuesday. The event brought together the African Export-Import Bank, the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the African Union Commission, and the Algerian government. The forum reflects a strong commitment to boosting economic integration and intra-African trade.
Algeria's hosting of the fourth edition of this trade fair reflects the government's firm commitment to advancing African economic integration and strengthening intra-African trade under the framework of the African Continental Free Trade Area.
At the heart of this momentum is the African Continental Free Trade Area, a key pillar of the Agenda 2063. The trade fair will offer Algerian businesses a unique opportunity to sign contracts, build partnerships, and attract investors.
The IATF is a relatively new mechanism, and Algeria is proud to host its fourth edition. As a young initiative, it is expected to grow, evolve, and prove its effectiveness on the ground.
More than 2,000 exhibitors and 35,000 visitors from over 140 countries are expected to take part in this major continental gathering. For Africa, the time has come to unite and build a strong self-sustaining regional market.
The IATF is the largest and go-to trade and investment fair on the African continent. Intra-African trade presents a huge opportunity for African economies to enhance their resilience in today's rapidly changing world.
With 49 countries having ratified the free trade area, this marks a turning point, an end to the fragmented economies inherited from the colonial past.
Algeria has always been prepared for trade fairs. I mentioned that in 1976, they were held the second All Africa Trade Fair. So they've always been in that, position, well situated, well positioned to hold trade fairs.
This landmark event underscores the growing strength of intra-African trade and highlights Algeria's and Africa's firm commitment to real economic integration in the service of shared development.
Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf arrived Tuesday in Kuala Lumpur to sign Algeria's accession to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia. The visit at President Tebboun's directive comes ahead of the signing ceremony during the Asian Foreign Ministers meeting. Attaf will also hold talks with Asian officials and foreign ministers to boost ties and regional cooperation. Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf met on Tuesday in Kuala Lumpur with his Malaysian counterpart Mohammed Hassan. Both sides agreed to begin preparing for the next Joint Governmental Committee session, focusing on priority areas and finalizing pending agreements. They also pledged full support for joint investment projects and discussed key regional and international issues, including Palestine and the Middle East. Algerian Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arabawi headed to Osaka in Japan to lead Algeria's National Day celebrations at Expo 2025. He was accompanied by a large ministerial delegation. Algeria's participation under the theme Designing the Society of Future for Our Lives aims to showcase its culture, economy, and investment opportunities through its pavilion, Anwar Algiers. Moving on to a different matter, Australian firm Dina Noble announced it will stop importing phosphate from occupied Western Sahara. In a statement reported by the Sahara news agency, the company confirmed it will no longer buy these shipments. The decision follows years of pressure from the Polisario Front, investors, and human rights groups over violations of international law and Sahrawi rights. Polisario's representative in Australia, Mohammed Fu Kaman, welcomed the Australian decision, calling it a major victory for the Sahrawi cause and the result of years of pressure and advocacy. He urged other companies and governments to follow suit and end what he described as the historic injustice against the Sahrawi people.
Nuclear power.
We welcome Dina Noble's decision to stop importing phosphate from occupied Western Sahara, a historic moment for the Sahrawi people. We thank the Australian Solidarity Movement for its steadfast support. This shows that public and institutional pressure, when aligned with international law, can make a real impact. We urge other companies and governments still involved in exploiting our resources to follow Australia's example. For the Polisario Front, this is another step toward full sovereignty over all of Western Sahara.
Dutch interim Prime Minister Dick Schoof has been summoned to testify in the trial of an analyst accused of spying for Morocco. Dutch media says Schoof was head of the National Counterterrorism and Security Agency during the suspect's tenure. The analyst was arrested at Schiphol Airport in November 2023 with data devices holding over 20 classified Dutch documents leaked to Moroccan intelligence over several months. Switching focus to the Middle East, in Gaza, occupation forces launched new deadly airstrikes at dawn on Tuesday on tents sheltering displaced Palestinians in Khan Yunis, killing at least 35 people and wounding many more. Local reports say dozens of women and children were among the victims in Al-Mawasi and other areas. Nasser Medical Complex received the bodies of a mother and her son killed near the hospital, along with other victims from earlier strikes. In Gaza City, more were killed in Rimal, Zaytun, Tal al-Hawa, and Tufah neighborhoods as Zionist forces bombed homes and tents, leaving many dead, including infants. In Rafah, 6 Palestinians, including children as well, were killed as occupation forces fired on starving civilians near 8 centers, with dozens more wounded in the attack. The death toll from the ongoing genocide in Gaza has reached 57,575 martyrs and 136,879 wounded, according to Palestinian health authorities. In the last 24 hours alone, hospitals received the bodies of 52 martyrs, including women and children, after Zionist forces targeted starving civilians outside US-backed aid centers, now turned into death traps. UNICEF Chief Catherine Russell warned that thousands of infants in Gaza face death due to a lack of nutrition. In a post on X platform, she said many mothers have been killed while others are too malnourished to breastfeed because of the Zionist blockade, leaving babies at risk of death or lasting health damage.
Thousands of Palestinian infants in Gaza are not receiving the nutrition they need and face the risk of death. Many Palestinian mothers have either been killed in Israeli airstrikes or are unable to breastfeed due to extreme hunger caused by the Israeli blockade on the Strip. As a result, many infants are at risk of dying or suffering permanent health issues. Every minute counts when it comes to saving lives.
Nasser Hospital in southern Gaza faces a surge in meningitis cases among children, aid groups report. The World Health Organization and Doctors Without Borders attributed the outbreak to overcrowding and sanitary conditions and dwindling medical supplies after 21 months of war, but warned that limited data obscures the full scale of the crisis.
we have nearly 40 cases newly admitted in Nasser Medical Complex as a case of meningitis, which is sometimes viral and sometimes bacterial. The increased number of cases is due to malnutrition and due to hypovitaminosis and low immunity in these babies. This is the first cause. Second cause is the destruction of the sewage system in Gaza and the dirty water that the people are dealing with. Also the overcrowdedness and bad ventilation and bad sanitation. All of these are causes of spreading of meningitis in Gaza in the last week.
Abu Ubaidah, spokesman for the Qassam brigades, vowed continued attacks against Zionist forces, warning of more captures in Gaza. In a Telegram post, he described the Beit Hanun operation as another blow to the occupation, stressing that the resistance, bravery, and the people's steadfastness will define the next phase of the battle.
We will continue inflicting daily losses on the enemy. Netanyahu's most reckless decision would be to keep his forces in Gaza. The steadfastness of our people and the courage of our fighters are what shapes the next phase. Though the enemy recently managed to extract its soldiers by a miracle, it may fail next time, adding more captives to our hands. The war of attrition from north to south is draining the enemy daily, and the complex Beit Hanun operation dealt another blow to the fragile image of their so-called army.
Indirect ceasefire talks between Hamas and Israeli delegations resumed on Tuesday in Doha. AFP citing sources close to the negotiations reported no progress so far. Talks are focusing on key points: a phased Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, the entry of humanitarian aid, and a lasting ceasefire. Moving on to Lebanon, 2 people were killed and 5 others wounded in a Zionist airstrike targeting a vehicle in Tripoli, northern Lebanon, according to Quds News Network. The strike sparked panic in the city as local media reported that it marked a serious escalation in the region. Zionist authorities claimed they were targeting a Hamas member allegedly operating in the area without providing further details. To another global news story, U.S. President Donald Trump firmly rejected any delay in the new tariffs set for August 1st. In a post on Truth Social, he confirmed that higher tariffs on imports from several countries will take effect as scheduled. Trump announced new tariffs ranging from 25% to 40% on 14 countries, including Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Kazakhstan, South Africa, Myanmar, and Laos. He also shared official letters sent to the affected countries' leaders, stressing that the decision is final. South Africa strongly rejected the new U.S. tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump, estimated at 30% on all its products. President Cyril Ramaphosa called the move unjustified in a post on X platform, saying it's based on a flawed reading of trade data. He stressed that over half of U.S. exports to South Africa face no tariffs, dismissing Washington's claims of a trade imbalance and a lack of reciprocity.
I would like to express my strong rejection of the new tariffs imposed by the United States on our products, which amount to 30%. This measure is unjustified and is based on an inaccurate interpretation of the trade data between our two countries. We confirm that more than half of the goods we import from the United States are not subject to any tariffs, which starkly contradicts the United States' claims of a large trade deficit and lack of reciprocity on our part.
In a similar reaction, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed deep regret over the U.S. decision to raise tariffs on Japanese imports. He noted that President Donald Trump's letter allowed talks to continue until August 1st, with a U.S. proposal to speed up negotiations. Ishiba said the letter could be revised depending on Japan's response.
It is regrettable that the US has announced further tariff increases on top of the existing rates. However, to clarify, the effective tariff rate remains unchanged, contrary to the 30 or 35% figures recently cited by President Trump. The deadline for negotiations has been extended. Additionally, the US has proposed accelerating discussions ahead of the new August 1st deadline, with the option to revise their proposal based on Japan's response.
Additionally, the United Nations warned of growing uncertainty and instability after the U.S. extended its tariffs negotiation deadline. In Geneva, Pamela Cook-Hamilton, head of the International Trade Center, said the move risks undermining long-term investments and trade deals, likely slowing economic growth in many affected countries.
Those with the most to lose the hardest. And while the reciprocal tariffs will no longer go into effect tomorrow, as originally announced, but be extended for another few weeks until 1st of August, this move actually extends the period of uncertainty, undermining long-term investment and business contracts and creating further uncertainty and instability. Economic uncertainty has real-world consequences, as we all know, on countries and on sectors.
Donald Trump, the United States President, announced plans to meet with Iran soon to resume talks while not ruling out a new strike. In a statement on Monday night, Trump said Tehran is ready to negotiate for peace. He confirmed the date has been set and expressed hope that another strike won't be necessary, adding that sanctions could be lifted at the right time.
Well, I would say that the best man to answer that is the Prime Minister. But I will tell you that in my view, I hope it's over. Yeah, I think Iran wants to meet. I think they want to make peace, and I'm all for it. Now, if that's not the case, we are ready, willing, and able. But I don't think we're going to have to be. But I think Bibi would answer that question very well.
Looking Eastern Europe, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that Washington will send more defensive weapons to Ukraine. Speaking at the White House, Trump said, "We have to send more defensive weapons, mainly to Kiev," noting that heavy attacks on Ukraine. He also criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin for refusing to engage in peace talks. For its part, the Kremlin accused Washington of prolonging the war in Ukraine, following U.S. President Donald Trump's pledge to send more weapons to Kiev. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the arms shipments undermine efforts for a peaceful solution. And that brings us to the end of our news program for tonight. For more updates, you can always check our social media platforms as well as our website. I'm Islam Sid. On behalf of all 24 News team, thank you for tuning in and good night.